Is all the shouting at Republican town halls just sour grapes from the last election, or are we seeing the birth of a legitimate political movement like the Tea Party back in 2009? And will replacing Obamacare be the linchpin? Well, let me ask Senator Rand Paul from the great state of Kentucky. Welcome back to the show, Senator.
Hey, Kennedy. Thanks for having me.
So let's talk a little bit about the ACA, because it seems to be one of the flashpoints at these town halls. And obviously, there is a lot of social media corralling and coordination. And one of the talking points they're giving to people online as they send them into these meetings is about the ACA and accusing Republicans of taking away their health care. What would you say to some of these protesters?
Well, I think we ought to repeal and replace it on the same day. And I'm not naive enough to think that health care was perfect before Obamacare. It was bad. I practiced for 20 years, and people complained mostly about the cost of it. But then we got Obamacare, and it actually made the cost problem worse by mandating that your insurance had to have 10 or 11 essential health benefits. And so by mandating these things in your insurance, they made insurance more expensive. So they compounded the problem. So I think we do need a replacement, and the replacement needs freedom, choice, competition, the marketplace. We need to be free to be left alone to try to choose from a whole range of insurance products, and basically we want to be it to be legal to choose something inexpensive. Yeah,
and one of the things that you have put forward, which I think is one of the better ideas and certainly encourages the free market, it's these health pools where individuals can pool together to buy insurance across state lines. Now, this has always been a good idea, and there's been some form floated by various architects of different plans, but I want to know with yours specifically, is this something that you can implement practically within a year?
Yes. There already are some of these associations. They have them in Oregon and Washington and a couple other places. Actually, many people on the left actually like them when they look into them. What the idea is basically nobody should be left to buy insurance by themselves. People do realistically worry about this and honestly worry about this. If you're mom and pop and you run a pest control business, you're worried. What if my wife or what if my spouse gets cancer? Will they drop us from insurance? Will they jack up our rates? So my plan would let those people in small businesses or individuals join together in large associations, and then they would have leverage to get lower price, but they'd also have leverage to get insurance that can't drop them, that has guaranteed issue, that doesn't jack up their rates because they're part of a large pool. The fact that anybody has to buy insurance by themselves is an artifact of the tax structure system that linked health insurance to employment a long, long time ago.
That's absolutely right, and that's a good point, because people's employment patterns are so different now. I know the Obama administration went to great pains to talk about how great the employment numbers were, when really you had so many people with part-time jobs and many who had dropped out of the workplace who don't necessarily have one single stable employer. Now, one of the bigger issues with your plan, and it's kind of confusing for people, and that's the part that has to do with pre-existing conditions, because you have to continually pay for 2 years worth of coverage in order to maintain your insurance after that provision runs out. But for people who have pre-existing conditions and can't necessarily work for 2 years straight, what happens to them?
You have to look at the problem first before we get to the solution. The problem is this: if you tell people in general that you can buy insurance after you get sick, that's what will happen. People will wait and buy insurance after they get sick. And then there's no healthy people to supply a large pool of insured. What happens is only the sick people buy insurance, and you get what's called adverse selection, and it spirals out of control.
That's the death spiral. That's right.
And so that's what we have now. To fix it, you cannot let people buy insurance after they get sick, because it just doesn't work as a model of business. People will go bankrupt, then you have to bail out the insurance companies. So it doesn't work. So what my plan says is, Obama gave us this, and people are stuck in the middle of it. We give people a 2-year period to sign up for insurance, during which the pre-existing clause would still be there, and then it is phased out and is gone in 2 years. You have to do that because there has to be ultimately some sort of incentive to buy insurance. If there's no incentive, and I can wait till I have a heart attack or wait till I'm diagnosed with cancer, People will, because it's cheaper.
Yeah,
of
course it's
work.
cheaper, and that's why people were sort of protesting the individual mandate by taking the penalty. I want to switch gears a little bit and talk about the Washington Post and Huffington Post and other publications are fanning the flames of this emotionalism on the left, saying this is the beginning of the leftist Tea Party. You are a product of the Tea Party movement, and you were elected to the United States Senate in 2010, re-elected this last November. Do you honestly see that happening on the left? Is that what is going on here?
I would say it's unknown. We'll see whether this is a group or an organization that gains momentum over time, whether it has an ideology or some sort of compact, goals and aims. I don't know that that's certain yet. They are having some big crowds. The march here, the day after the inauguration, there were a lot of people there. There's no denying that. There are angry people showing up at town halls. Now, I will say with the Tea Party, though, is there was a consistent ideology, a reverence for the rule of law, for the Constitution, for limited government, for balanced budgets, and for not accumulating more debt and passing it on to our kids and grandkids.
Yeah.
That was a coherent ideology, and it really was one that harkened back to the founders. That's where the "Don't Tread on Me" flag comes from.
The Gadsden flag,
there was a lot of that. I don't know that the left necessarily is coming together, except for the fact that they're upset and they're angry about the election.
No,
I think right now this is anger, not necessarily ideology.
Yeah, no, you're right. There is not one unifying principle like there is in the liberty movement, which, it houses some conservative Republicans, some libertarians, and even some liberty-minded Democrats. I want to ask you, lastly, Radley Balco is someone who writes a great deal about law enforcement and criminal justice, and he had this tweet about you. He said, at Rand Paul, so how does a drug war and mass incarceration critic, you, vote for the Senate's most strident supporter of both to run the DOJ? How did you vote for Jeff Sessions?
I think personal considerations. I've known him for a long time. I didn't like the way the Democrats vilified and tried to create him into some sort of racist monster, which is not who he is. So the fact that they use character assassination, I didn't want to be associated with that. But I can tell people, libertarians across the country, that there is no stronger voice in the U.S. Senate for opposing militarization of the police, opposing the drug war, opposing the surveillance state. And so if people want to apply a purity test to me, they're more than welcome. But I would suggest that maybe they spend some of their time on the other 99 less libertarian senators.
All right, Senator, thank you very much for your time. Appreciate it.